Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. My name is Deck, and if you enjoy talking about movies in any way, shape or form, you can feel right at home here. In today's video, I'm going to be doing yet another ranking video, and in this particular case, I'm going to be ranking my top 5 personal favourite A24 films from worst to first, so let's discuss. So A24 is a studio that is very popular among us film fans. They just constantly knock out these bangers after bangers after bangers, and we always just look forward to an A24 film. Anytime they are distributing something, we are always very excited to see it, and for me personally, they have made a lot of fantastic films that I've always really enjoyed, or films that I've loved or gravitated towards. And I think doing this list, I think my top favorites were pretty easy to come up with, but the specific ranking of these 5 I kind of struggled with a little bit. But this is a very interesting list, and of course this is just my own personal opinion. These are just my personal favorites that I've chosen for myself. You can of course have your own favorites. Please leave your own top 5 list, or however many you want to put, in the comment section down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And with all that out of the way and all that said, let's jump into my ranking. A couple of honorable mentions just to kick us off with. First of all, I'd like to talk about The Florida Project. This film is just phenomenal. I was so impressed with this, just the colors, the story. It was just such a relaxing movie as well. It takes place in this almost tranquil, almost heavenly-like environment, and it's just a really interesting looking film just to really explore and sink your teeth into. And even though the film isn't particularly deep really, or isn't particularly heavy in regards to its storytelling, it's just a really interesting world to live in. And even though the film doesn't really have much of a story, just being with these characters makes it entertaining enough. Also, The Lighthouse from Robert Eggers, which came out of course last year, and The Lighthouse is also fantastic from A24. I think that this film is one of the best horror films that they've done. I think this movie just really has a sense of eeriness and creepiness and solitude and seclusion. It just feels like you are trapped on this rock with these two guys who are just going insane, and it's just an insane journey to be on. Like when you're watching these two just interact with each other, and as the film goes on, it's just this spiral of madness, and by the end of it, you are absolutely bewildered. And I definitely am excited to go pick this up and watch it again. It's unfortunately out of stock here in the UK on Amazon, but when it comes back in stock, I will certainly pick it up and watch it again because I really want to dive back into that world. And also a very recent film I watched is While We're Young, directed by Noah Baumbach, and this film I didn't even know was Baumbach when I watched it. I went into it because I saw it was Ben Stiller and Adam Driver, two of my favorite actors of all time, in the same movie together, and it was only when I started watching it that I realized it was Baumbach. And this movie is really awesome. I was so in love with this. It's just such a nice movie. It's such a relaxing film. It's got a great story about age and how they differ between different generations, and how different generations define things like success and happiness. And it's just this really interesting story about these two different people and these two different families, and I just really enjoyed that story. And it's a film that I just have kept wanting to go back to, and I haven't stopped thinking about since I started watching it. But going into my top 5 and kicking us off, we have Uncut Gems. Now, Uncut Gems is a film that came out very recently here in the UK. It came out in January on Netflix. And Uncut Gems is, of course, the next film and the most recent film from the Safdie brothers. And I watched Good Time just before watching this, and I was really impressed with Good Time. I really enjoyed that film. I thought it was a really well-made thriller. And with this, I was really excited to check it out. And for me, this was even better than Good Time. I really loved Uncut Gems. This story was just so engrossing. I couldn't take my eyes off of the screen. It was just so captivating, and it was so enjoyable. Adam Sandler's performance is unparalleled. I think this performance is so just on the next level. It's wired, it's crazy, and I think only really Adam Sandler could pull off a character like this who is so unlikable and so annoying, but yet so endearing at the same time. Only Adam Sandler could really pull that off, and all the other performances are great, particularly Julia Fox, who is a true standout here. I can't wait to see what she does next. The tension in the film is high, even though I don't personally receive the same level of stress or tension that a lot of people got while receiving this film. I purely think that's just a personal thing. Like, I don't really know how to describe it. I just don't really get that much stress when watching movies, so I think it's just a personal thing with me, but I can definitely understand why people got that feeling. And I think that this movie really just has this great concept for a story. It's really intense, it's really against the time, and again, it's one of those films where it's almost like a car crash, where it's really horrible, and there's a lot of bad stuff going on in it, but you can't take your eyes off it. Coming in at number 4, we have Midsummer from Ari Aster, and this film I absolutely loved as well. I mean, I watched Hereditary, I think, just after I watched Midsummer, or maybe I watched it before, I can't quite remember. But Hereditary was a film that I thought was really good, but I do feel like it kind of messed up the very end of the film. I'm not a fan of the ending of that movie because I feel like it kind of undercut the rest of the film. Midsummer doesn't have that problem. Midsummer for me is one of the most scary films I have ever seen, and it's for one particular reason, which is that everything that happens in this movie is real. Everything that happens in this film could happen in real life. Far-fetched? Yes, but it could happen, and that is what's incredibly scary. The most scary thing in this entire film is this one tracking shot where Ari Aster follows a hose pipe that goes from a car through the house, and you just see what happens with that. And obviously if you've seen the movie, you'll know what I'm talking about. But that scene was terrifying. The way that the camera moves, the way that the music swells up, it was just genuinely bone-chilling. Like, that got to me. That was really terrifying. And the way that this movie is really able to bring out these performances, particularly Florence Pugh, who this film really secured her as one of my favorite actresses. Her performance in this is unreal. I mean, I was really happy that she got a Best Supporting Actress nomination at the Oscars for Little Women, but she truly deserved a Lead Actress nom for this film, because this was the best performance of 2019, and it was just incredible what she was able to do here. The way she was able to portray grief and the way she was able to portray upset is unlike anything else I've seen before. The way she cries in this movie is genuinely kind of unsettling on how real it is. And even Jack Reynor does a great job here. Just everyone involved in this cast was an absolute phenomenal performance. And I think that this film also has a really unique aspect to it in that this entire film, for the most part, once you actually get to the festival, completely takes place in daylight. It's so bright and it's so off-putting because of that. It's just, you have all these horrible things happening. It's really a disgusting movie at times, but it all takes place in the broad daylight, and that is really different and really interesting. It makes this film really unique to watch, and I'm very excited to go back and check this out again. I want to watch the director's cut because I want to see what else was included in here, but for the most part, Midsummer, just on its own, is one of the most unique and most terrifying horror films that I have seen in a long time, due to the fact that this is all horror in reality. Coming in at number 3, we have Enemy from Denis Villeneuve, who, if you guys know, is of course my favorite director of all time. Enemy is just one of his more interesting and more fun and rewatchable movies for me. Enemy is just one of those films that you watch it the first time, you love it, you think it's amazing, but you don't quite get everything that happens in it, and you don't quite know how to take it, so you have to go back again and see the movie from a different angle, and you have to try and sort of put the pieces together yourself, and it's really fun because of that. This movie has an incredible lead performance straight down the middle with Jake Gyllenhaal, who absolutely knocks it out of the park in this movie. Not only does he have to play, of course, his one character, he has to play two characters, and both of them are so wildly different and so unique in their own right that it feels like two different performances. It doesn't feel like this is Jake Gyllenhaal playing two characters. This feels like two different actors. That's how fantastic this performance was. And on top of that, you just have this story that is so intriguing. It's so simple and so basic, but it's so engaging at the same time. The idea of this doppelganger is just such an interesting concept, particularly for me personally. I think that's a really interesting idea, and the way that Denis is able to play on that and is able to unleash this story that is unrelenting and is just freaky and kind of weird and also really interesting at the same time is quite a feat. And I think that this movie really just knew what it wanted to do, and it kind of did that and so much more. And I think that this film is one of those that I will keep going back to time and time again, just because every time I think that you watch this film, you discover something new. Coming in at number 2, we have 8th Grade. Now, 8th Grade is possibly the most relatable film I've ever seen for me personally. I think that 8th Grade, when I watched this, I just saw myself in this character of Kayla so many times. The way that this film is able to portray high school life and the life of an awkward high school student is just relatable to pretty much everyone. And even though I can't relate to it on the same level due to the fact that obviously this was set in America and American high school life is very different to British high school life, there are some foundations that cross over between the two, and I was able to spot myself in those. And what really caught my attention about this film is the way that Kayla is portrayed as a young YouTuber. That is just incredible what they do in this film, because the way that she speaks, it's the way she talks when on camera that really nails it home. Because the way she speaks, the dialect, the way she stumbles her words, the way that she doesn't really form sentences correctly, she kind of says like this, you know, hey, like this, and that is so dead on. Like, that is so accurate to what most people do when they first start out YouTube. That's exactly what I did, and when I saw that on screen, I couldn't help but just fall in love with the movie because of how accurate that was portrayed. And I saw myself on that screen, and it was incredible. And you know, I think that when you look at Elsie Fisher's performance in that, she just nails it. Like, she just has this era of confidence when on camera, but then when she's off the camera, she's so quiet, and it just works so well. I think this film really just, it's like they just stuck a camera in someone's real life and captured it all, and it's so dead on, it's so accurate, and it's so relatable, and I guarantee anyone watching this will find something to relate to in the movie. Even parents, there is the dad in the film, and I think even they will relate to what he goes through in the movie. There's just so much to love about 8th grade, and I think there's something for everyone. My number one choice, though, has to go to The Disaster Artist. And The Disaster Artist was a film that when they actually announced that they were going to be making this, I was so excited. As a huge fan of The Room, it's easily one of my most entertaining films of all time. It's so bad and so funny to watch. I was so excited when they said they were going to make a film about the behind the scenes, and of course this is based on the book The Disaster Artist that was written by Mark himself, Greg Sestero, and this is just a fantastic film. What I love about The Disaster Artist is that it covered both bases. Not only was this film a really good portrayal of all of the best jokes from the Room fandom, like, you know, it really does take the piss out of the Room in the best possible ways, and that's all great. But what the film also does is tell this really endearing and really beautiful story about this guy just trying to make it in Hollywood and the struggles of trying to become an actor and a director in Hollywood. And it combines those two things and creates this one package of an incredible film. And the performances are great, especially James Franco absolutely nails it as Tommy Wiseau. His performance is so accurate, it's so like fine pieced together, because the way he talks, the way he laughs, the way he structures his sentences together, you could just tell he really studied Tommy while going into this performance. And even his brother, Dave Franco, who of course plays Greg in the movie as well, he also nailed it. Like, the looks are great, it feels so authentic. And the way they're able to capture the behind the scenes of it, you know, there's a lot of rumors, there's a lot of stories about what happened behind the scenes of The Room, and there's a lot of different things going on. The way that they're able to play that and recapture that is incredible. Tommy even makes a cameo in the movie, which shows that even he gave this a seal of approval. Like, there's just so much to love about this movie, and if you're a fan of The Room, you will love this movie. And even if you're not a fan of The Room, I think you will still appreciate what this movie does, because even though you may not particularly understand some of the in-jokes if you've never seen The Room or not really involved in that fandom, you will still appreciate the story that the film's trying to tell. I watched this film with someone who had never seen The Room, and they still really enjoyed it. So I think that tells you everything you need to know. Regardless of what you think about The Room, regardless of how you feel about it, you're still going to like this movie regardless, and I think that this film is just going to capture the hearts of everyone who watches it, and that's why for me this has got to be my favourite A24 film. It's the one I've watched the most, it's the one I've rewatched the most, it's the one I've experienced the most, and it's the one that I just have the most personal connection with. So that's why The Disaster Artist is my favourite A24 film. So there you have it, guys. There's my personal ranking of my top 5 favourite A24 films from worst to first. What are your top 5 A24 films, or top 10, or whatever you want to do? Leave your favourite A24 films in the comment section down below, and as always, guys, if you want to see more movie reviews and movie related content just like this, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any uploads from me, and hope to see you guys again next time.